Good morning, bananimators! Today we're going to do some sparkles! Hooray! I haven't had a lot of time to work on my Sailor Moon thing because of this moving thing. We thought we'd have more time than we did, but we have to move very fast. We have to get out of here, you guys! So I've been packing, and I just did not have the energy this weekend to finish that Sailor Moon. I have just the last scene to do the character, and then we can start putting some effects in that scene. It's gonna be really fun. But in the meantime, I want to make some sparkle. I want to just play around with some sparkle falls, kind of have a think about what I want to do in that scene. I have to do some magical girl transformation research. All right, so let's take a look at this scene. This is one of the most iconic sparkle fall things. I think this is like when you think of a sparkle fall, this is what you're thinking about. Now they're having a chat. Blah, blah, blah. My dress is so raggedy. So check out her little wand. She's just got, this is on YouTube, it's just Cinderella. She's got these sparkle pops, these little pops. I've always really liked them. You can see, like, you've got to follow around, they're going pretty quick, but each one pops off, and then there's a sparkly falling round sparkle. So there's a pop sparkle, a round sparkle, and then here we have great big, just drenching sparkles that fall off. So I'm not going to do this exactly. I'm going to just kind of play with the idea of a sparkle fall, but I'm going to get some of these pops. I'm going to just do this part where we've got these pops, we've got these slow falling, boiling dots, and you can see how that's done. This thing here, I don't think we're going to have time for that today because it is quite a lot. And today I'm going to do it using some particle effects, because when you have really intensive sparkle scenes, it can be really hard on the hand and the wrist and the whole arm. Years ago, I had to just do a whole ton of sparkles really quick. I ended up getting tendonitis. It was really not enjoyable. So definitely take care of yourself and your arm, and particles is one way to do that. Something like this is a lot easier now than it was back in the day. But the thing about particle effects is you have this problem with sameness. So what we're going to do is create a whole big pile of sparkles that we can use to take away some of that sameness and give it a little bit more of an interesting look, okay? So the first thing we have is those sparkle pops. I really like them. Let me do we'll do a six-sided sparkle pop. And you might not think about how sophisticated sparkles are, but I want you to just take a minute and look at different shows. Watch Frozen and see how beautiful those little hexagonal fractals are. They all have there's six-pointed sparkles like this. They're snowflakes. The little details, when you do stuff like that, that's what's going to have you stand out outside of the other effects animators, is by thinking about the show and how you can have sparkles that really reflect this show. Sparkles is the best place to hide little things. You never hide nasty things. You hide cute things. I like to hide little turtles and hearts and stars, but you never hide genitals in your sparkles. Don't do that. So for a sparkle pop, it's very simple. You just boop, 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 boop. You have your little shapes go out. You start with little lines, and you can shrink your lines off. Boop, boop. And you can go as fast as slow as you want. The Cinderella ones are actually quite slow. They have a little bit of time on scene in the screen so that you can enjoy them. And let me make these a little bit closer. So let's just take a look. So I'm going about here. Then I'm still touching most of them. This one I've gone a little bit further. Let me bring that one back in. If we want to keep it consistent. There you go. So boop, 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 boop. And they're just staying above the leading edge. They're not going super fast. If they were going super fast, they'd be spaced like this. You want to keep them a little bit closer. And this is something you just have once you have more experience. Let me just put a bunch of them. You'll have a little bit of a better eye for what you want. So there we go. We have a little sparkle pop. Pop, pop, pop. And if you want, you can do a little bit of a fall here as well. So let's just sophisticate this a little bit. We're going to start with our hexagon, our six-sided snowflake here. And instead of just going out, what we're going to do is have them fall, have them lose momentum. So here, again, we're touching our last point. We're not going too fast. We want to be able to see it. But then I'm going to start curving towards the ground. So you have to remember when things fall, they go towards the ground. This seems obvious when I say it out loud, but when you're creating your arcs, if something is heading, so if it's going this way, you have to eventually have it towards the ground. You don't want it to go past vertical like this. You don't want it to weird out like this, but you can think about maybe it has a little bit more or less momentum. And if you need to draw those guidelines, people are afraid of guidelines sometimes. I mean, I've done a million of these and it's not very long, but if you're new to this, draw your arc. If you can't remember where your last drawing was, just draw a little arc. And these are going to lose their momentum pretty quickly because I want them to fall. And we have, you see, we have a pop and then we have a pop fall. So it depends on what you're going for. I think I'll use the second one. I'll use the sparkle fall. I think in the Cinderella one, their pops are pretty straight. I'm going to move it back. But I'll do one more sparkle pop because they're really fun to do. So you've got your 6. You don't need to do 6. You could even do an odd number. But this time I'm going to have a very big taper. I hate that the minimum size is not 0. Okay, so I'm going to have it taper out. And you're saying, Tracy, this is going to be so small. What difference does it make what the shape of this thing is? But that's what's going to set your effects apart, is when you really care. Especially, listen, if you're doing this by hand, the old-fashioned way, then yeah, you don't want to do this a million times and pay very careful attention to all these tapers. But because you're doing a couple very special ones, that gives you the opportunity to be very careful with your shapes. And then I'm going to have a circle. That's a little hold, a little wobbly hold, and then kapow! Each one becomes its own little sparkle fall. So this is going to be a double bursting sparkle. See how fun this is already? You can go as crazy as you want. Boop, 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 boop. And doing one at a time is just a little bit easier than tracking a billion at a time. And if you're going to do one of these, you'll very quickly realize that doing hundreds of these, like that Cinderella scene, is no small feat for your arm, your lower arm. Got a couple here with 4. I don't want to have too many. Boop, 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 boop. All right. So we got a pop and a double pop. Pop, double pop. And this one's a little bit thinner than this one. Let me just resize this one. Reposition all the drawings. There you go. So we have a little sparkle and big sparkle pop. Boop, 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 boop. And we're going to do some little wobbly circles. So I'm going to see sparkle circle. Hide these. When you're using particle effects, I wasn't very careful in the first ones, but it really pays to center your stuff here. So we're going to have this start small and grow and shrink. Simple as that. We're going to do another one. And for our third one, we can start at the top. And we can have this one fall as it goes. It's going to have a gravity node on it, so it's going to fall as well. But now this one will fall faster than the other ones, and it'll give us an easy change in speed. So then we have a fall. We have a wobbly sort of circle. We have another wobbly sort of circle. We have our pew pew double sparkle pop and a single sparkle pop. Okay, so we have a whole bunch of little sparkles now doing their thing, and we're going to plug those into our particle situation. So let's see. Going to go through the particles. Basic. Okay, so when I start with sparkles, I've got a particle effects series, I think 4 videos that kind of go through the basics overall. So check that out if you have no idea how to use sparkles at all. I'll link it down below. But what we're going to do is just start with the gravity one, because gravity makes sense for what we're doing. I always start with the basic one. You get some triggers and stuff inside of your group, your outside group, which is really handy. But then also you get a bunch of stuff in here. So I always delete a bunch of stuff out first. And it's easier to delete a couple nodes than to add all these nodes together, because you need a whole bunch of stuff to get this stuff working. We have a velocity. We'll hold on to, let's unplug it, but we'll keep it. I don't need a region for that. We have our sprite emitter, which we definitely need. 3D region, I think I'm going to switch that to a 2D region, a planar region. Because if we're using a wand, I like to use a little disc at the end of our wand. We can build a wand. Let's make a wand. Yeah, what a great idea. Wand. And we will make a purple wand. No, we will make a stick. Ta-da! There we go. This is why I'm not a designer. So here is my wand. I'm going to put my wand's doodle daddle down there. What are those called? Pivot points? Let's call it a pivot point. And we want our sparkles to come from the tip. So we're going to use our planar region. This is going to follow the wand. If you want your planar region to animate around, you have to connect it. Boop, here it is. So now we're going to we shift F11 to see our wand. We can put a little peg. Why not put a little peg? Put a little peg right here. And we are going to shrink it. And we want, you can get as precise as you want. You want everything coming from super duper close to center. There you go. Now you say, but these are not coming from the center. They actually are. They're just dropping down because of this gravity node is on a bazillion. And by a bazillion, I mean 1. So I'm going to put 0.1 in our speed. So this is how I do particles. You start with the overall. What's going to be the simplest thing? Usually I just start with gravity. Gravity's pretty, it's got most of the stuff you need to get started in a good way. Then the first problem is everything's going too fast. So I always start with my gravity node inside here, and that will change how slow things fall. So let's even 0.5. We don't want our stuff falling fast. Barf out the particles. The next problem is it's just barfing out dots and not our dots. We need our dots. More dots. Boop. So I'm going to take all these and bring them inside. Let's use Sparkle Pop 2, plug it in down here. So let's go into our sprite emitter. What do we want? Okay, first of all, we want, instead of dots in our rendering tab, we want it to use the H. And now you can see, blah, it is just barfing out these sparkle pops. And that's great. Okay, cool. Next problem is too many. It's like a crazy amount. So what we're going to do is lower them in our generation tab. We only want like 1 or 2 of these. Generation, maybe even less than that, maybe even 5. So we want 2 particles 5% of the time, and we want to apply the probability for each particle. That'll help break things up a little bit. And you can see our particles, let's see if we can get just one to pop out here. There we go. Our particles are falling in the weirdest possible way. They're turned 90 degrees. And that's partially because of the gravity. If we unplug the gravity, then pew, pa-ta. But once we start this thing moving around, it starts doing some stuff. So that's our next problem. Everything's coming out sideways. What do we do? Back to our rendering tab. Is we could realign the axis. So in this case, I think -y. Pew. That's going to have our gravity make sense with our drawings. That's nice. But I don't think I want it to keep falling, so I'll just remove that and I'll unplug this gravity node. I think for our sparkle pops, we won't use gravity. So let's just save gravity for now. We'll have our sparkle pop. And if we want a little bit of movement, we could add a velocity, but for the pops, I think I'm going to leave it. So I like this. I'm going to bring the generation up just a little bit. Poof, 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 too many times. We can play around with that as we go. So I want to do my next sparkle pop. I'm going to copy this. So what I can do, I can reuse this planar region. I will create a new sprite emitter because I need to input a new sprite. So here's my sparkles. Boop. I'm going to use the same planar region. Boop. And now, boop, 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 boop. We have two different ones. So I kind of neglected the fact that this is off center. Boof, boof, boof. It's going over here. That's because when I created my initial drawings, I was not very careful about where I put them. They're over here. When this happens, you can reposition all your drawings, and you want to put the center, the very middle of where you want things to happen, in the center of this, or of the grid. What is it called? Field guide. In the center of your field guide. We remember our classical animation school. Pew, 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 pew. So now it's just popping out these sparkle falls from the center. Yay! So cute. Next we have our little maboobers, and we're going to want a gravity node for this. So what we're going to do is have to copy and paste special, or grab some new versions of these. You cannot have gravity on this some places and not other places. So we need a new particle composite. You cannot plug two particle composites into a single baker. You cannot plug two bakers into a particle visualizer. These three nodes should be one node. They are never in any other order. They should just be one node. It bothers me. So here we have our bunch of nodes that should be one node. I'm sure there's some reason that they exist separately, but for our purposes, you just think of them as a unit that cannot be separated under any circumstances. We can grab our sprite emitter and reuse this. We can use our move particles. You need a move particles to move your particles. It just sits there and does nothing. Well, I mean, it moves the particles, but you can just pretend it doesn't exist. I'm pretty sure you can find all these things in other places. So we'll just include that. Our sparkle emitter. We're going to need 3 of those because we have 3. Boop, 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 boop. We have 3 different particle effects. Boom, sparkle fall. Boom, sparkle fall. We can deactivate these for now. And what else do we need? A planar region. Let's reuse our planar region because it is the same. And we have these guys up here. I'm not going to put a velocity in just yet. We'll keep you over there just in case. And then our gravity node will not affect these sparkle pops, but they will affect these little dots. So now, let's look at one at a time. Make sure they're doing, so this one's falling just as you would expect it to do. This one is falling just as you would expect it to do. And this is the one that has pre-drawn fall on it. So you can see that it's off its axis because of the gravity node. Sometimes gravity's like, oh, I'm just going to turn your stuff. So sparkle, rendering, and this is going to align it with the direction. We can undo that, and that's better. Yay, fixed it. So this is where you would fix that rotation thing. Usually you can flip the x-axis and stuff or change these things, and it's something you're going to play around with. Sometimes I'll just play around with it till it looks right, but this is where you're going to fix that thing. So now we just have plop, 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 and it's just barfing out some stuff. I think I want these ones to be a little more robust. So let's say 11 and 7. This guy will give 14 and 5 and 9 and 9. Just so they're all different. And now, blah, 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 it's just barfing stuff out. And you're like, well, that looks terrible. But way back in the beginning, we connected it to our wand. So now we can animate our wand. Whee. And it is leaving the sparkles behind. Whee! Our sparkle falls look too samey. See how it kind of looks like it's just leaving like a pukey wake? What we can start with, we can double this up. Exposure on 2s, and that's falling a little bit slower. My gravity, I'm going to calm down even more. These, sometimes you gotta put super tiny little increments on this. Let's try that. There we go. So now it's feeling a little bit more like a fall, but they're all being placed in a very, very similar position. So that's when this velocity node comes in. So what we can do is have random in all directions 2D. Oh dear. Oh, okay. Oh, let's calm that down. And so we just, again, we go into our speed. We want our minimum speed to be very, very, very small. Our maximum speed even to be smaller than that. And now our sparkle fall is a little bit more random and inconsistent. That's nice. It's not too bad. So this is starting to look pretty. We can play around with adding some more or less sparkles. So we can make this like much, much higher. And that's getting even more pretty. And it's about, at this point, it's about playing around. You can also adjust your sparkle fall so that you have different sizes. Like right now, all of our circles, the 3 of our circles, I made them a little bit close to the same size. So again, we can reposition all drawings and we can make some, I think these ones are the ones we put a lot of. There's not a lot of these, so we'll make these ones big. There's a whole bunch of these ones, so we don't want too many of those. But now we have the occasional big one. Whee! And maybe that's too many because they're so big. So we want to calm them down. And this is what we do. We start with a little bit of something and then we play with it, we watch it, and we see how it feels. I want it to be even busier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this small, let's take the falling one, create another one, and I'm going to actually create a whole new Mabuber like this. I want the same velocity, I want the same gravity, I want the same move node, but I would like a new sprite emitter, and I'm going to just make so many. I'll make like 110 every 15. Oh, we need our planar region, all these things we need. But this one, what I'm going to do is come down here to the particle visualizer, and I'm going to make it 60% of the size. Is that small enough? 40% of the size. Okay, so this is our falling one, and that's going to, let's make a new gravity, and I'm going to have these ones fall faster. Okay, not too many. 25. We'll just have them fall a little bit faster, and I'm going to make it twice as long. I'll put it on 4s. Slow down the wand here too so we can see it. Whee! Too slow. Is that too slow? You know what I'll do? I'll fade it off over time. Over in our rendering, we have an animatable alpha channel. In our rendering, here's a coloring strategy. We can have map RGBA based on age. We can apply opacity based on age. So let's apply opacity based on the age. And then here we can add some keyframes to our opacity. So around that far in, we add a keyframe. We want it to be 0, and then it stays at 0. So now these ones fall a little bit farther, but they're fading off. See? How pretty. And you can have all of them fade off, but most of them, they're scaling down. And you can go ahead and add more nodes to this. Oh, my wand just disappears mid. Watch my wee field guide. All right, so let's add some effects to this. What I'm going to do is get a blur. I like to use a radial blur for glows. You can also just use a glow. The glow, throw that in there. And you have to jack it up really high if you want it to be really opaque, and then play with the radius like this. And then you can, like now it's kind of got a burning trail there. Plug your things back in ahead. of it, and then it's got like a sharp edged front over a blurry background. You can see it gives you kind of a golden halo when you use this one. You can also change the color of all your sparkles, of course. But I like, if you want it to stay like really crispy white, it's easiest, there we go, just to put a blur behind, and then it'll say, it doesn't go as golden. It still looks gold to me. Whatever. What do I know? Yeah, so now we can render this. Right, so here we have our little bit extra. It's certainly far from as gentle as the one that we were watching before. Those big sparkle pops, I think they might even be going a little too fast. We can slow those down. But I hope this gives you an idea of where to start with something like this. Like, you can put in as many layers as you want, as many colors as you want. You can have it change color over time. You can have it change opacity over time. So just by putting in more animated sparkles, you can see with the double sparkle pop, different kinds of falls, different scales of sparkles, you're going to give yourself a little bit more of an interesting texture to the whole situation. Let's just double up the speed of those, or half the speed of our sparkle pops. Boop, 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 boop. It might need to be in between if it feels a little bit choppy. That might just be me. So there we go. That's with our sparkle pops on 2s, our wand on 2s. But you can see a little bit of a stagger between the circles and the pops and stuff, because the gravity node is on 1s. You can't switch that to 2s, which makes me sad. But if you needed to, you could render them out in a PNG sequence and then delete every second frame if that stagger is bothering you. It does bother me. I'm very high maintenance. But here we go. This is not so bad. I think those big circles are a little bit obnoxious, so I think I would make them maybe... Ooh, I know what I could do with them. Those big ones. I won't render it, but what would be nicer is if I had a radial gradient, so that those big sparkles look more like this. Actually, let's just render it again. Where have I got to be besides doing my job? And I'm just going to keep changing my brush size. Hold O, drag, O, drag, and that will give me a little bit an easier time trying to get these working. So I'm going to stop playing with this. Now I've got some gradients in there. I've got some sparkle pops, sparkle falls, some still things with a gravity node. There's just a whole bunch of stuff layered in to give you an interesting look. Hopefully you can see how you can... When did that fall? Tape. There you go. The camera's held up by masking tape. It's a real ramshackle operation here, guys. So here's my end result for what I've been playing with. There's so much more you can do. You can have your velocity throw the sparkles up a little bit instead of just randomly out in every direction. You can animate as many different things as you want, as many sparkle falls and sparkle pops and different layers that you can put in here. But hopefully you can see how you go about doing something that has a lot of layers like this. You kind of have a foundation to build whatever you want yourself. It doesn't have to look anything like this. It also doesn't even have to be a sparkle effect. It could be sparks from a fire. So you have some little wiggly ones and some straight ones and some pops and crackles. It's endless what you could do with this kind of stuff. And it's going to save you from tendinitis, because tendinitis is no fun. You can't draw as many sparkles if you ruin yourself on the first batch of sparkles. A lot of people, like when you don't know how this is set up, you come in here and you look at this and it looks like scary spaghetti, but hopefully now you can see it's just built up with one idea at a time. You start very simple with just a couple nodes. You have a problem, you try and find a way to solve that problem using nodes or using the adjustments in here. Then you add the next thing. And especially if you have a whole bunch of different guys like this, you just do one at a time until they're all done. And then at the end, it looks really scary spaghetti, but it's not that bad. The node view is your friend. All right, so that's it for now. I should be able to get a video this week and next week. Then I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to be able to set up my recording stuff. I don't even know what province I'll be in 3 weeks from now. Who knows? We'll just see. It'll be an adventure. Stay tuned on Twitter for news. Like, share, subscribe, all those things internet people ask you to do. And I've got to edit this. Wow.